Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us in today's very special interview with the Carnivore God himself, Dr. Shawn Baker. Dr. Baker, hi and welcome.
Well, welcome. Thank you for having me. As I said, for your listeners, I'm a little out of breath. I just got done doing a pretty hard workout. So anyway,
He tried to kill
a pleasure.
himself right before our interview.
Well, I don't know if I kill myself, but I try to make myself stronger so I don't die. But hey, what is your audience, by the way? Who are you talking to? Just so I
A
know.
lot of carnivores.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of carnivores. I do, like lifestyle a little bit, but I would say, and I do like dance videos and things like that, but probably, yes, like salsa and stuff. I'm planning on doing like better ones in the future, but I would say the bulk of my videos and the bulk of my audience, maybe like an easy 85% would be carnivore and maybe some keto.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I'll have to work on my dance moves to upgrade my social media, apparently. So,
It's the best. Hey, when you take out the chocolate, you have to replace it with something.
yeah.
I replace it with dancing.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well,
Okay, so
happy
huh?
to talk to everybody.
So, Dr. Baker, can you share a little bit about your background and especially what is it that you're focusing on lately?
Yeah, well, my background, I would say I'm a physician. I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training. I spent about 2 decades doing orthopedics. So basically putting in fake knees and fake hips and fake shoulders. We technically call them arthroplasties, but trauma, fixing broken bones, doing a lot of sports injuries, ACLs, shoulder surgeries, rotator cuff type stuff. I did that for, a number of years, and then got interested in lifestyle. And, to my surprise, I started seeing people responding primarily to a ketogenic diet with significant decreases in pain to the point where they no longer needed surgeries. People I literally were scheduling for surgery. I had like, okay, we're going to do your knee replacement in 3 months. Let's have you lose some weight first. And they come back in a couple of weeks later and say, my knee pain doesn't hurt anymore. So we ended up canceling the surgery. And so that got me interested in nutrition in general. And we couple that with the fact that, I'm now 55, soon to be 56. And when I was in my 40s, I was a world champion athlete, training all the time. And I found that I was, despite all that, I was still, getting older. I was putting on weight. I wasn't sleeping well. Blood pressure was going up. Probably had prediabetes or metabolic syndrome. And so I went into looking at diet pretty intensely. Tried all kinds of diets. I started out with a low fat, mostly vegetable diet. Lost some weight, but felt like garbage, literally just hungry all the time, angry, miserable, not happy. Started including, more of a paleo style diet, went to a low carb diet, ketogenic diet. And then finally it's been about 6 years now. Back in 2016, I did my first sort of foray into a carnivore diet. And I loved it. I was like, wow, this is the best I've literally felt in 10, 20 years. And did that for a short period of time, about a month, and said that was a neat experiment. Went back to my sort of mixed omnivorous ketogenic style diet, and within 24 hours, I immediately felt worse. And I was like, well, I don't like feeling bad. I like feeling good. So I went back on the diet for I don't know how long, and then I got to I remember my significant other, she was asking me, hey, well, how long are you going to do this for? I said, well, I don't know, maybe I'll try a year. I got to a year, and I was like, well, let's see if I can do 2 years. I haven't looked back. I've been basically, carnivore for now, just down to 6 years. And, that's sort of the backstory. In the interim, I've written a book, The Carnivore Diet. I was the guy that actually named this diet the Carnivore Diet. There's other people calling it the zero carb diet. And, there's all kinds of people that have come up with meat only diets over the centuries. This isn't new, but I was the guy that named it the Carnivore Diet and wrote the book. That was pretty well read by a lot of people, got some attention, got on, Joe Rogan's podcast, which, clearly got the sort of the message out to a lot more people. And then myself and my partner, my business partner, Masa Rasami, who had her autoimmune condition cured basically by a carnivore diet. We founded a company, and it's now named Rivero. And our mission, is basically to reverse disease, get people off medications, treat the root cause. All the stuff that we're supposed to be doing that we don't. And, we recently did our first round of, capital investment. We raised $5 million as a seed round to get this thing started. So we're in the process. I think we just hired a couple engineers, or we've got, so we're going to build out this platform. We'll be hiring physicians and other healthcare providers over the next 6 to 12 months, and then we'll get rolling. We'll start reversing disease and doing all that good stuff. So I'm excited about that.
We're all excited about that, and we're all rooting for you. And I'm always talking about Rivero, and I teach nutrition at Miami-Dade College, and I'm constantly talking about this diet, and I show them like the success stories on Rivero back before it was MeatRx, and then you
Right.
you founded the company. So, but I mean, all the success stories are there. And now that I work with clients, I had yesterday a client, she's 55 years old, had in menopause, doesn't get her period. She texted me yesterday and she's like, "You're not going to believe this. I just got my period."
Yeah.
At 55 on a carnivore diet. I mean, I see things that are crazy. My student healed psoriasis last semester with it. So, I'm a full believer in that. And because obviously I experienced it myself, and every single area you can think of has worked for me. So, this is real. This is what we ate for 99.99% of our existence as a species here on Earth. So how did you first hear about the carnivore diet?
So I heard it from Facebook.
You broke up a little bit with your
Oh,
internet.
sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, so I was I found literally a group called Zeroing In on Health. It's run by a guy named Charles Washington. It was a group of a few thousand people that were eating this crazy all meat diet. They called it a zero carb diet, and I just kind of stumbled on it. I can't remember how I ended up reading about it. I'm sure I saw some crazy link or something like that. Maybe some headline. And I think I looked at these people, Joe and Charlene Anderson, and they purportedly been doing an all meat diet for like 16, 17 years at the time, and they look great. I was like, wow, these people look really good. They look a lot younger than their age. And so I just kind of read it and started reading it, and kind of stalking this group for about 6 months, and started asking questions and looked at some of the source material they were suggesting people look at. So I read all this stuff, and I said, it sounds plausible. I mean, I can see where this may have some rational, real world application, and the plausibility of humans eating meat, and a lot of meat as we grew as a species, which I think the anthropological evidence is pretty overwhelmingly supports that we were heavy meat eaters, if not exclusively meat eaters, for at least for periods of time and locations. And so I wanted to look into athletic performance, because I was still competing as an athlete. I still am. I'm still an athlete, still competing. But so I tried this, and I was like, wow. I mean, this is the best I've felt, and I can't remember how long. I mean, I was an orthopedic surgeon. I had tendinitis in my right quadricep, which I'd had about 8, 10 years, and it just never went away. And it would always bother me, it waxed and waned, but it was always there. I could always tell it was there. Some days it was really bad and I couldn't exercise, and it really was frustrating. I just thought, hey man, that's just part of aging, right? That's just the thing. You get older, you get aches and pains. Well, I did a carnivore diet, and literally, I think within 2 months of me doing this, it was gone, and it's never come back, which I thought was just completely remarkable, because as an orthopedic surgeon, I used to see and treat tendinosis all the time. People complaining about it. Now, here's some therapy, here's some stretches, here's some over-the-counter medications, here's an injection. And, you never see it go away. And for me to see it go away completely it's pretty eye-opening to me. And so, so I credit those people. I've credited them many, many times. They took the risk. They went out there and did this stuff, and again, they found it from others before them. Blake Donaldson was a physician in the 50s and 60s from New York who wrote about this extensively in his book. It was called Strong Medicine. And it was basically every single clinical presentation would come to his office. He'd say, go eat a pound of steak and an egg. His medical prescription was eat meat. And he was getting good results, which is not surprising now that we look at that. But that's what he was recommending then. And then prior to that, you had Stephans and stuff in the 1920s. And prior to that, it was Salisbury. We've all heard of Salisbury steak. Well, Dr. Salisbury, James Salisbury, was prescribing meat-based diets for all kinds of issues. And then, there was, Italian physicians. Cannellini was another one. And I think Cantini was his name. Sorry, not Can. I sound like a noodle. Cantini. and there was, there's a Scottish surgeon, James Rollo, in the 1700s, prescribing meat-based diets for diabetes. So this has been around forever and ever, and it just works. Meat will never be a fad diet. I mean, it's people say, "Oh, it's a fad diet." Well, no, eating meat has always been part of the human diet, and eating a lot of it has been part of the human diet. Now, whether you want to include a few fruits and vegetables, I think is optional. If you like it, fine. If you don't, you don't have to have them. I'm convinced of that.
Are you talking about organs? or
Well, yeah, the same thing.
other
Organs are completely optional as far as I'm concerned as well. I don't eat them. I don't eat them, and I don't say you have to. I think they're fine to
Yeah,
eat. There's other people out there saying you must eat them for optimal health.
right,
Quite honestly, that's bullshit. It's not true.
right.
And there's people out there that just want to sell up supplements, based on this. And
Yeah,
that's I've got data on 12,000 people. Harvard University study on 2,000 people shows organ meats made basically no difference in outcomes. So if you like them and you get a short little buzz from eating liver, that's fine. But if you think it's going to prevent or change your illness course or give you superpowers, it's all marketing, quite honestly.
yeah. Okay, so how is your diet right now? And I know you're
Right,
gonna say just steak, but like a little bit
right,
more detail.
right at steak and eggs. So I had a ribeye steak and 6 eggs for breakfast. I'm going to have a New York strip and 6 eggs for dinner, and that's my diet. And I do that most times. Sometimes I include the eggs, sometimes I don't. Right now I'm in an egg phase. But I've gone 2 years straight eating nothing but red meat with nothing else. I mean, meat, salt, and water based. I've done that for a couple of years. Occasionally, a little dairy will creep in there in the form of cheese. Mostly steak and eggs. Every once in a while, I'll have something. I'll have some spices. I'll maybe very once in a while, I'll have a little piece of fruit or something like that. But that's like 1 day out of 50 or something like that. My family is, my girlfriend is 90. I'd say she's 90% carnivore at this point. She was a vegetarian when I met her 10 years ago. It's kind of funny. It's kind of a remarkable transition. She was always complaining, "Oh, my guts are always hurting." And then, as she's gotten more and more carnivore, that's all gone. I mean, she's like perfect digestion. But, like for our dinner, and like I said, I'm eating steak and eggs, but the dinner is going to be me cooking some sort of steak. Usually it'll be some kind of cheese that's cut up. She's from France, so she likes cheese. And then usually they'll have a couple pieces, maybe an apple. They'll cut up an apple and, and a bunch of slices, and that'll be dinner, and so, but yeah, I mean, I basically, I'm totally content with my meals. I thoroughly enjoyed every bite of my ribeye steak this morning and the eggs I ate. And I'm going to thoroughly enjoy the New York strip. And I've probably had, I mean, without exaggeration, in the 6 years I've been doing it, I'm probably close to 6,000 steaks I've eaten. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I eat them. I cook steaks 2-3 times a day, every day. You know,
A vegan somewhere just had a heart attack.
Probably, yeah. Well, anyway, I probably eat enough steak to cancel out about 10 vegans, probably maybe 20. I mean, honestly, I mean, I literally eat, if you think about the average American in the United States, and most people don't know this, we eat about 56 pounds of beef a year, 56 pounds of beef, which translates to a little over 2 ounces a day. The average American's eating 2 ounces a day. I eat 20 times that amount. I probably eat 40 ounces of red meat a day, probably is, it's around 2.5 pounds. 20 times what's supposed to be killing you, right? So my thought was, why is my coronary artery calcium scan at 0? Why is my inflammatory markers completely almost next to 0? Why do I have normal blood pressure? Why am I not fat? Why am I not getting all these issues? Why am I still performing at 55 in a fashion that most 20-year-olds can't do? If I'm supposed to be dying from all this meat. And the answer is because meat is not bad for us. It's all the junk food. It's all the garbage. And all these studies, I put this out there, there's studies, people talk about the hierarchy of evidence, and just like randomized, systematic reviews and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials, and then, randomized controlled trials and case cohorts, and then, epidemiologic and, expert opinion and anecdotes, all this hierarchy of evidence. Well, I say step one is you need to be studying what you're trying to study. So there are studies that involve people eating exclusively meat and everything else. And the only studies that are relevant to me or anybody else in this population are studies of people eating only meat. And any study that doesn't include that is a waste of time. You're not in that cohort. And so what do we have? What do the studies that are people only eating meat? Well, there's a Harvard University study which came out. There's another study from University California, Merced. There's a study from Switzerland on SIBO. There are multiple case reports, 4 or 5 case reports coming out of Hungary. There are the metabolic studies back from the 1920s. That's it. That is the entirety. And Amber Hearn wrote an opinion piece on nutrient sufficiency. That's the extent of the literature on carnivore diet. Every single one of the studies, all 10 or 12 of those studies show a good result. That's all we know about a carnivore diet. Now, are they high quality studies? Are they randomized controlled trials? Are they intervention trials? No. But that's the only data we have, other than you can look at historical observational studies of populations, and we can say pretty conclusively they were generally free of modern chronic disease. So, I mean, all the data that we have on pure carnivore diets or next to pure carnivore diets is good data. Now, everything else is confounded by standard American diet, junk food, and that's just garbage. I mean, it's like you're not even studying what you're trying to study.
100%. That's what I tell my students all the time. I had a vegan student last semester, and he had a mission every day when he would show up to class, show up, anything I say, with nutrition, whatever you say,
yeah,
there's a study that contradicts it,
right,
because
sure,
it's all epidemiology. That's it.
Right.
So, at some point I had to it's like, okay, you and I, we're never going to agree. So let's go to the discussion group and do this later. So, but yeah, that's what I would tell my students. Yeah, the totality of evidence supports a plant-based diet, because everybody already believes that veggies and plants are healthy for you. And so that's the only thing they bother to study. When I was employed at the University of Miami, the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis, as I was finishing up my doctorate there, they hired me to kind of, they're setting up this new wellness center for paralyzed participants, and they needed to get funding for the wellness program, and they needed what kind of diet to recommend. And they were, they take me to all of these meetings, ask me the questions. I'm the dietitian, and I'm talking all about plant toxins and carnivore diets and all that stuff. And then at the end, he's like, yeah, but no, we're just going to go with the Mediterranean diet because that's the only thing that gets funded. Like, it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter if he agrees with me or not. He's like, the only thing that's going to get funded is a Mediterranean diet. And that's what they went with.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you got to get the funding, and that's why it's been a challenge now. I mean, like I said, my deepest sort of respect for a guy like David Ludwig at Harvard University, who, he actually approached me about doing a carnivore study, and I kind of helped facilitate that happening by, just getting the word out that they were looking for prospective, study candidates. And so we got that done. And so it's in the literature, and like I said, whether you like it or disagree with it, or like the quality of the study or the methodology of the study is another thing, but it's in the literature, it's peer reviewed. The evidence suggests, and it's not, nothing is definite, but it suggests that a carnivore diet is both safe and effective. And, over at least, and again, they had their minimum length on the diet was 6 months. They had somebody on that diet for 28 years, so they had a whole range of people on there.
True.
And by the overwhelming majority of those people were very good. So, I mean, we 2,000 people, which is not a small, not a small sample size, a pretty decent sample size. And there's more coming. There are more studies that are on their way. So we'll get them done.
Do you remember when you were posting about the funding, you were setting up a GoFundMe campaign for a study? Yeah. Which one was that? Yeah. Did it get made? What happened?
No, we're still working on that. So basically, we are, again, we've got several consultants. We've consulted with somebody from one of the universities. I'm not going to go into who we're using right now, but we've got, like, I can't do the study. I'm not a researcher. That's not my background. I'm not going to do a study. It'd be a waste of money, right? I'm not, we need experienced researchers. So we're in the process of negotiating and hiring those people to do the studies for us. We're going to be looking at a lot of what we're looking at is cost savings metrics, because the way we want to approach this, from a business standpoint, is saying, look, we can put people on a nutritional therapy. Use fancy words. Nutritional therapy. It's it's kind of a fancy new catchword. We're going to use nutritional therapy to mitigate and reverse disease, with the end result being you guys save a hell of a lot of money. And so what we can do is we can look at the cohorts, and we can get historical data on all kinds of, you can get this data on, what people spent healthcare wise, over a period of time, say for the last 5 years because of their disease. Then you can do your intervention, and you can see what the healthcare cost is after that. And if you can show that, they were spending, $15,000 a year, on these years, and then after the intervention, that cost goes down to $1,000 a year or something like that. That's huge, and that's compelling when you're trying to talk to companies, when you're trying to talk to payers. And so that's the route we're trying to take here, is showing that we can dramatically cut the medical costs, because that's what moves the needle. I mean, yes, it's great that people got healthier. Yes, it's great that no one's suffering, but at the end of the day, no one really, the people with money don't care about that. All they care about is money and saving money. And so that is kind of the metric that we want to look at. And we can say, look, we can save you a bunch of money. Now, the end result of that, the side effect, is that we get a lot of people healthy, which I think is important. And, like I said, if you can't grow as a company and you can't get funding, you know, it doesn't matter how good you are or what your goals are, but you've got to be able to, you know, afford to do what you want to do. And so we need, and we're trying to be very pragmatic and very smart about it, because we know, like, I know if I just tell people, hey, go on a carnivore diet, many, not all, but many people are going to see a big improvement in their outcomes. Now, the problem with that is, you know, there's such a stigma behind it. Like you mentioned, everybody thinks that vegetables are the way, you know, it's like, you know, the almighty, you know, almighty lettuce is the way, the truth, and the light, you know, type of thing. It's almost religious, you know, and it's not. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, it's better than eating, you know, Doritos and Twinkies and ice cream and cookies, but it's not this magical, oh my God, just got to eat more vegetables. I don't think that's the answer. I mean, it clearly is not.
No.
But anyway,
And in some cases can be very damaging. So
it has been, and that's the thing. I mean, I think there are no sort of sacred cows as to what you think. Now, I'm obviously biased to think that meat is a very good food and a superfood, and, you know, I mean, I think that most people do very well on that. But, you know, if there's somebody who says, hey, I didn't do well on meat, I'm not going to say you're lying. I'm just going to say, okay, well, then do something else. But I mean, for people to say that every single human on the planet needs to eat 5 servings a day of fruits and vegetables, it just doesn't work for a lot of people. You know, I mean, like I said, there's, you know, like I said, I think you could, I mean, you know, when we look at like national guidelines, you know, like we have the U.S. dietary guidelines, which I think are abysmal. They're not science-based. There's some, you know, there's research that just came out, 95% of the reviewers have a conflict of interest. They're funded by food companies or whatever. So, I mean, you know, obviously there's that. But I mean, you know, if I look at like a place like Brazil, whose food guidelines are basically something along the lines of eat whole foods, avoid processed foods, cook at home, and cook with people you know, eat with people you love. I mean, that's basically their guidelines. I think those are pretty damn good guidelines, quite honestly. If we would just get away from, you know, the fast food, the garbage food, going out to eat all the time, the convenience food, learn how to cook, stop eating garbage, eat whole foods. I mean, you would literally, I mean, you would cut the chronic disease epidemic in half, just if enough people would do that. Now, the problem is getting people to actually do that. It's challenging.
yeah, because we're all addicted, the sugar addiction and the addictive food. And that was actually the biggest, well, that still is the biggest reason why I do carnivore. It's because I have no cravings, and I've struggled and battled with my weight and binge eating and sugar addiction, like really bad, like serious case, for over a decade, well, more than a decade, maybe 2 decades, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we all
So,
are. You know, I was a guy who, I mean, nothing was too sweet for me. I mean, I remember I would get these desserts, and other people would take a bite of my dessert and says, "Oh my God!" I remember my wife at the time said, "Oh my God, it's so sweet. I can't even say how can you eat." And I just give me another piece. You know, and I think you develop this desensitization to sugar. I mean, you eat so much; it's in everything that, you know, you're just numb to it, and so you got to keep progressively increasing the intensity of the sugar. Like, you know, sugar's in everything. It's in ketchup, it's in bread, it's in salt, it's in, you know, believe it or not, you pick up a thing of salt on the salt, and there's maltodextrin in salt as an anti-caking agent, right? So it's in everything. So you're so used to having the sugar that, you know, in order to get a true dessert, now you got to have this ridiculously gooey, super sweet stuff. And now, like I mentioned, you know, every once in a while, you know, I'll have like a, you know, a bite of an apple or something like that, and that tastes so sweet to me now. And, you know, and it's like, because I never have it, you know, I just almost never have it. And so it's like, you know, I think in years gone past, you know, you would have a piece of fruit would be an occasional dessert or something like that. Now it's like dessert for breakfast in the form of breakfast cereal or some muffin. And then there's lunch, some granola bar, more dessert. And then there's, you know, obviously then there's dessert for dinner and real dessert. And it's just, it's on and on and on. And so we do have a huge sugar problem where, you know, we're eating, you know, like I said, we're eating 50 pounds of beef a year, and we're eating 150 plus pounds of sugar a year on average, which means there are people eating, you know, 400, 500, 600 pounds of sugar a year, which is just crazy to think about that.
just knowing those stats and having the nerve to blame red meat is just mind blowing to me.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, it is. I mean, you know, you look at the average American diet, 70% plant-based. Now, most of that, to be fair, is processed garbage. Actual red meat is, like I said, it's a small percentage. It's like 5% of our diet comes from red meat, you know, from a volume side. Most of the animal source food in the American diet is dairy. That's the largest number. Then you have chicken. Chicken is more than beef. You know, pork is minimal, lamb is minimal. Eggs are kind of small, fish is kind of small, beef is kind of small, but it's
right.
usually like chicken and dairy would be the bulk of everybody's meat consumption. And then most of the red meat is often in the, most that we see that most of it is, you look at how much red meat is sold by McDonald's. McDonald's, I think, sells a huge proportion of our red meat. I think it might even be half of something like that. It's some ridiculously astronomical amount. So you think about it, how many people are going into McDonald's and just ordering burger patties? Almost none. I mean, I would go and do that occasionally. Usually I go to Wendy's, but when I'm in there eating burger patties by myself, there is exactly zero other people doing that. There's none. They look at me like, what? They don't even know how to key it into the keyboard because it's just so rare. So all that beef, all that red meat is being eaten in the United States at McDonald's is eating with French fries, a Coke, some kind of bun which has 7,000 ingredients and whatever, So you think most of the eating is done in the context of garbage food, and like how many people just eat straight up whole unprocessed meat or minimally processed meat and no junk food. That's a very small minority. That's basically the carnivore population. Maybe a little bit of the keto folks.
Yeah.
And what are the results? I mean, we generally, I would say, and the other thing you have to realize is most of the people coming to these diets, like you mentioned, former sugar addicts, diabetics, chronic obesity, they've got some chronic medical issues, so they're already damaged people. Yeah. And yet they're still doing better. Even though they have this background of disease and disability, they're, as a whole, still doing better than the rest of the cohort of the population. So if you take people that aren't damaged and you put them on a whole food meat-based diet, and we're seeing a little of that in the athletic world, like I just interviewed a guy, Seth Groth. He just made the U.S. wrestling team going to represent the U.S. at the World Championships, full carnivore. He switched to that because he was having hip pain and back pain, and he had back surgery and he needed hip surgery, and went carnivore. All of his pain went away. He defeated the national champion in a surprise win. He beat the guy that beat him 10-0 the year before. He turned around and beat the guy, took the spot. He's going to represent the USA at the World Championships. Will probably make the U.S. Olympic team, largely because he switched to his carnivore diet. Not to take anything from his work ethic, but the diet made a huge difference for him. So,
what's his name again?
His name is Seth Gross, Gross. He calls himself God's wrestler. I think he's fairly kind of religious guy, but he is just a really wonderful, pleasant, super guy. I think our interview with him just came out the other day on my my little YouTube channel. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole number of athletes that are doing this now, and I think like I said, if you wait until you're sick, and like many of us do, like I did. I mean, I didn't change my diet until it caught up with me. Most of us don't care because you're like, well, if I can feel good and keep eating garbage, I want to keep eating garbage. I would, to be honest, if I never would have gotten sick, I would still be eating the same crap. The problem is it eventually catches up to you. And like I said, I was a world-class athlete competing and training, and it didn't catch up to me to the point where I wanted to quit until I was about 42. Now, when I look back, when did it start to affect me negatively? Probably in my 20s. If I look back, probably in my 20s, there were signs. If I had been if I'd have been smart enough to look at it, I would have noticed that, hey, you're seeing some signs of early disease. But I was a big athlete and training hard and doing all the things from the training side that I was still way better than the majority of people. But now that in retrospect, so had I known what I know now, and also had I been willing to accept it, because that's the other thing, you always thought, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? And I'm like, I don't know that I could have told myself anything, because when you're 20, you think you know it all, and you don't care, and everything feels great, and you're just like, one day, you just like you only live once type, the YOLO stuff, and so I don't know if you can convince people. Some people, if you can, maybe if you can present a compelling enough argument, they'll change. But it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny, because like I had to go through everything myself, because I was educated as a dietitian, and then I'm a PhD in exercise physiology and nutrition, and just like completely brainwashed with this stuff. So it took me a long time to like swallow that pill, that beef or that just plants and veggies can't be good for you. So it took me longer than somebody else who actually, the students that take my course, they're like first year college students, and I'm like, I'm so jealous of you that I'm telling you, I'm giving you everything, like, and this right now, and you're starting your early adult life knowing this stuff, because man, I mean, so many things could have been different in my life had I ate real food starting at 18 or even before that. So
yeah, I mean, it's and it's, I don't know what percent, it's a very small percentage of people that are getting this information, because as the sort of the mainstream education, the mainstream messaging out there is very much not this. It's, eat more plants, stop eating meat, and I think we're going to see a lot of suffering because of that. We're going to see a lot of suffering. And,
I
we've
agree.
already got a highly brainwashed population. And I
Yeah.
think that's just going to get, it's just going to get worse, I'm afraid. And, we've got, I've got 4 little children, not little, they're 3 teenagers and one 9-year-old, but it's, I'm on them, I'm kind of like, hey, at least none of them are interested in going vegan, which,
True.
they're, and then whether you're forced to do it, and this is a thing, it pains me, there's people out there that just sort of care about nutrition, and I think, they may fight one way, but they're not willing to stand up and really truly fight for belief. It's, like people are just, they're afraid, oh my God, I better not like this. I better not like this tweet. I better not retweet. I better not retweet this thing. They'll message me in private. Oh, I like what you're doing. I agree with you. But at the same
Wow.
time, they're too afraid to actually say it themselves. I'm like, well, you need to say the same thing too,
Wow.
and it's interesting to see that, and I, like I said, I'm just going to keep, getting out there and as much as
Yeah.
I'm able to, because I've been suspended, banned, shadow banned, all
I was
that
going to
stuff.
ask you about that. So TikTok now has banned you.
Yeah, that just came. So I said it was submitted appeal, and the appeal was changed. I don't know. It's kind of funny. It was literally, it was my interview on Rogan, and somebody cut it up and put it on a clip, and it was just like, Rogan asked if it's that expensive. I said, well, it doesn't have to be. You can get ground beef, and a couple pounds of ground beef a day. You can get it for like $10 or something like that. And that was literally the only thing I said.
Yeah.
And somebody, and it was reported as a community guidelines violation for dangerous acts. Like I'm telling people to, go hang from a ceiling fan or something like that. Dangerous acts eating beef, and so I, of course, appealed that. And to my surprise, they actually, oh, yeah, sorry, we're sorry. So probably what happens is, it's mass reported by a bunch of knucklehead vegans that,
Right.
they can't stand the fact that someone has a different opinion than them. So they want to censor you. They want to shut you up. It's not that their message doesn't speak for its own merit, I had, when I was, I had another physician, his name's Joe Furman. He went on a podcast, a friend of mine, Mark Bell's podcast, and he literally said, because Mark said, what do he, and Joel is he's a nutritarian, believes heavily in nutrition density and thinks everybody should be eating plant-based and meat is kind of bad and you shouldn't really have it. And Mark said, well, what about those people that think that you should be eating a meat-based diet? And Furman, this other physician's response was, those people are lying and should be locked up and sent to jail. And he specifically me, he said he should be locked up and sent to jail for, espousing this stuff because he's hurting people. And, to my,
Wow.
well, I mean, I'm kind of surprised by that, but I'm not in this day and age. There's so many people that think that if you don't agree with them, then you need to be locked up. You need to be silenced and censored. Which is becoming more and more prevalent. But, it's like, all I see every day long is people getting healthy on this diet. I mean, you've seen it too. All we do is see people, like you said, reversing psoriasis, reversing inflammatory bowel disease, their mental health gets better. I just had a guy yesterday, 2 days ago. He was bipolar with schizoaffective disorder. He'd been on drugs for 21 years. He'd been to the ER over 200 times. Went on a carnivore diet within 6 weeks, awful medication, normal mental health. Done.
Wow.
And what are you going to do? I mean, how much money does that guy cost the healthcare system? I mean, not money, but when you look at the healthcare systems, particularly the ER utilization, there are a very small minority of the population, say 1%, that use something like, I don't know, 20, 30% of the resource because they're always in there. And if you can fix those people with something as simple as giving them steak and eggs to eat every day, I mean, why don't we pay for that? I mean, that should be, like we're spending probably, $400,000 or $500,000 a year on his health care with all the ER visits. Why not just feed the guy? Here, give him free steak and eggs. I mean, that's got to be a hell of a lot cheaper, right? That's what I would do. I mean, my God, particularly if it works, and it does work, and I think, hopefully we'll get to that point where we can say, hey, look, we can literally afford to feed these people would be much cheaper than to pay for their health care.
Yeah, it's a problem though, because as you very well know, with your experience at the hospital, they're only looking at the next quarter and they're only looking at their sales and how much money and profit they're making. And so this, and besides, I mean, how are hospitals going to remain in business if they actually make people healthier with prescriptions of meat and eggs?
Yeah, that is a problem, and that's one of the things I ran into in my career. You know, as an orthopedic surgeon, I made the hospital a lot of money. I made them tens and tens of millions of dollars a year through surgical OR fees, through, you know, radiology services, through physical therapy services, for lab services. You know, in addition to whatever fee I would collect as a surgeon, which was a tiny fraction what the hospital was generating. And you know, some specialties lose them money. Pediatrics, psychiatry, you know, they depend upon these high throughput, very expensive, special.
You broke up
they were like,
again
can you hear
for
me
a
now?
second. I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when I approached the hospital about, look, I'd like to spend, you know, an afternoon a week, you know, doing some lifestyle stuff, or a day a week, and they said, no, we're not paying you for that. We don't want you to do that. So that was a big sign to me that, hey, they're not really into it. They're not really in it for health. They're in it for, you know, bottom line dollars. And I was the head of the department. I knew that the budget was very important, but at the same time, I was like, I went to medical school to actually get people healthier. That's why I
Yeah.
thought and it turns out, you can kind of do that as a side effect as long as you do it within the framework of dishing out drugs and you know, making money. But if you're going to do that in a way that's not highly profitable for the hospital, you know, if you look at the growth of hospital administration versus physicians over the last, you know, 30, 40 years, the doctors have gone kind of like this, have been pretty flat, but the hospital administrators have gone up 1,000-fold percentage wise, you know, 10-fold as many hospital administrators. So it's very much a business right now. And there's so many,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really sad to see it, quite honestly.
It is. It is sad. I agree. I wanted to ask you about salmon when you were telling me about your current diet, and I feel like the omega-3 topic gets brought up a lot. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, if we look at our absolute requirements for omega-3 and omega-6, remember omega-6 are also required. I mean, you know, there's concerns that we eat too much of them, and you know, particularly when they come in the forms of processed food and related to, you know, some of the, you know, corn oils and soybean oils and stuff like that. But you don't really need that much in them, and usually you get enough in beef, whether it's grass-fed or grain-finished. I mean, there's enough in there to meet your needs. The nutritional, you know, the ratios are not that important when the amounts are really small. I think when you get into issues, you know, one of the thoughts is, you know, why do we care about omega-6, omega-3 ratios? Well, some of the data out there is like looking at populations, like the Japanese, for instance. We know the Japanese tend to live long. We also know they eat a lot of fish. We know they eat a lot of omega-3s. The same was noted with some of the circumpolar population like Inuit. And the question is, was it really due to the fish consumption or the omega-3 consumption, or was it due to something else? And we don't know. Was it because they're not overweight? Was it because they have all these other positive health metrics that we don't hear, or was it due to the omega-3? We don't really know the answer to that. And so I'm not so excited about that. But I would say, you know, again, if you're worried about, you know, your omega-3 ratio, yes, eating one piece of fatty fish a week would blow, you know, it's totally skew it towards, because there's so little in beef and a relatively large amount in a piece of salmon or some other fatty fish, that you're going to just skew that way over that. So if you want to hedge your bets, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with fish for most people. There are some people that don't do well on fish, but I mean, for the most part, and I do occasionally, I'll have some fish. I mean, I can't remember the last time I had any though. I mean, there's been periods of time where I've eaten, you know, I've been on a little kick where I'll eat some shrimp or some salmon, and, you know, usually it's for a couple of weeks here and there, but I'm not as worried about that as some other people might be.
Okay. And you work out a lot. Can you share exactly how much you work out and whether or not you take electrolytes because you are like a peak performer?
Right. Yeah, I do work out a lot. I mean, relative to most people, you know, not as much as most people think. I mean, I just got done doing a workout. Right? Like I said, I was out of breath when I came in here, but I mean, that was a 20-minute workout. It was kind of funny. I'll tell you a funny story. So I had just finished doing some consultations. I had an hour, and I was like, oh, I'm going to run down to my garage and get a workout. Well, I got down, and we have people staying from out of town, and we got a niece and some other relatives from France. And, she wanted some pancakes, and I don't have any pancakes. I don't make pancakes. But I looked in the cabinet, and there was literally there was flour from like 2 years ago, the last time they were here. And I threw together some stuff. I had some eggs, and I had some milk, and I had some baking powder, and I had some sweetener, and what else? I had some vanilla. So I made some pancakes real quick, and I'm in there cooking them, just because she wanted, because they've just been eating meat and eggs and fruit and doing what we usually eat, and she was like, oh, I want some pancakes, they're like missing that. So I'm like, okay, I'll make up some pancakes for her. So I cook it up for them real quick, and that took like 20 minutes. So then my workout was like, okay, now I only got like 15 minutes, 20 minutes to work out. So I did this super fast workout, blew through that and then came up here and did this thing. But usually I like to do something active every single day. I just don't feel good when I don't exercise. It's just it's like, for me, it's just part of my daily routine. Most of my workouts are short. They're 15, 20-minute workouts. That's it. And many days, some days, I'll literally work out. I'll jump on a rowing machine and blast out a minute.
Okay.
And that'll be my whole workout for the day. There's other days where I do more. Like sometimes but rarely do I spend more than an hour a day working out. It's just not that much. And part of it, over the years, it's certainly over the years, I have done 2-3 hour workouts over the course of the 40 some years I've been training. But these days, one of the things, the diet makes it so much easier to retain muscle mass. My recovery is better. I feel better. I don't have to do as much to maintain a high level of physicality, which I think is good. I think the diet really helps with that. But when I want to do something very hard and very intense, it's not difficult for me, even without, like before, I would have to build up for that. Now I can basically, with 1 or 2 workouts, I'm already there. I just kind of maintain it. And I think that, the fact that I'm not eating highly inflammatory foods and I'm eating high quality nutrition, my body just hangs on to muscle and lean mass a lot better. So, but yeah, I if I can just get, I tend not to be sedentary. I'm standing right now. I'm usually I'm usually trying to avoid sitting down as much as I can. I think, because when it comes to, like I said, where does our, caloric expenditure come from? It's not from exercising. It's usually from just day to day, the so-called NEAT, non-exercise, exercise activity thermogenesis.
Non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Activity thermogenesis, right,
Yeah.
NEAT. Yeah. So basically, I avoid sedentary behavior. I do try to exercise. My workouts, I like to focus on a number of things: strength and keeping muscle. So there's things I do for that. I like to do things that I like to do some high intensity interval training, cardiovascular stuff. So it's usually a bike sprint or rowing sprint. I'll do a fair bit of walking though. I don't really count that. I walk my dogs. I probably walk a couple miles a day at least with the doggos. And then I do some jumping, and explosive stuff, because I'm 50, like I said, I'm closer to 60 than I am 50. And I like to stay explosive and be able to jump and throw and move and sprint and do those things. So I think those things are all important to maintain. But again, the volume doesn't have to be super, super high. Now, if I were trying to put on muscle, if I were, because I'm 250 pounds, I'm already a pretty big person. But if I wanted to say, like, I wanted to be 270 and more muscle, then I would train a little differently. I would spend more time in the gym. I'd spend more time doing more volume. But, just to maintain what I have right now, it doesn't take that much time.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6'5". So 6'5", 250. I'm pretty.
250. That's a lot of muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of body.
Yeah.
That's why I got to eat a lot,
Yeah, right. Sorry, vegans. So what about the electrolytes?
Yeah, so this is an electrolyte drink I'm drinking right here. This is Element. That's the stuff that, the LMNT. It's
Right.
sodium, potassium, magnesium. My buddy Rob Wolf makes that stuff. I do sweat a lot. Like I said, I was pretty sweaty when I came up here to do this interview. And because of that, because I'm on a high protein diet, I'm on a low carb diet, both of those are relatively dehydrating for you. And so, as we know, insulin causes our kidneys to retain salt and water. So we were more hydrated in that situation. So when your insulin levels are a little lower, you're going to tend to not hang on to salt and water as much. And then also higher protein. When we consume a lot of protein, then our body has to deal with the nitrogen. And so the nitrogen is converted into first ammonia, which is toxic to us, but then is rapidly converted by our liver to urea, but we still have to get rid of it. And we get rid of it through sweat, water vapor in our breath, and then urine. And so so we need to continue to have fluid to help to eliminate the nitrogen or the urea. So yes, I do tend to drink a little bit more, and to hydrate yourself. If you just drink straight up water, there's a point where as you start to dilute your electrolytes, your body says no, we don't want you to be hyponatremic, where your sodium's too low. So now we're going to pee it all off. And so when you add fluid plus electrolytes, that's how you truly are going to add more actual fluid to your body and keep it there.
And do you use the ones that have sweeteners, or do you just get like the bland ones?
I use both. I don't, like I said, I know there's people that are really sensitive to artificial sweeteners. I think some are probably better than others. I mean, most people would argue. Yeah. Like monk food and stevia is probably less offensive. All those, there's the critics of those too. I don't have any issues with that, although there are people that do. They make a plain version, which I've used in the past too, which is fine. I mean, but I don't really have a big problem with it. I mean, I think there's, it's certainly a controversial topic. I will tell you that, and there's some people that do better to avoid those things. But I am, unfortunately, not one of them.
I think what it is, because I think I can speak on that, because I've been in that camp where it's like, I can't have sweeteners because it's going to trigger me. And then once I put that thought in my head, it's like when you believe something, it becomes true, and you're going to find a lot of people that tell you, yes, it's true. And those are the studies that show how addictive sweeteners are. But then when I put it in my head, it's like, no, like, it's fine. I can have something a little bit sweet and I can moderate. I can also do that, but I have to believe it. And so for me, I feel like it depends on what somebody already believes. So if you tell yourself, I really cannot have sweetener, well, you're going to act in that very specific fashion when you ever,
Yeah, I mean, I think the concern is that the sweetener is going to, it's either directly harming me, it's hurting my gut microbiome or something like that, or impacting insulin secretion or something like that, which the studies on that are kind of mixed. Or the trigger behavior, where if I have something sweet, I crave something sweet, and then after time, I'm just going to eat something. I'm going to eat something else, cookies and all that stuff, and then I've been, and then I fall off the wagon. And I find that this, like when I talk about people initiating a carnivore diet. Now, like I said, I've been doing this stuff for 6 years, and so I can take or leave chocolate chip cookies. I mean, I don't need them. I don't feel compelled. I can walk by, I can be hungry, and stand in a room with chocolate chip cookies and not eat them. Whereas before I couldn't do that over a period of time. I mean, I would walk into the doctor's break room, and there'd be a bunch of big old box of donuts in there that somebody brought in inevitably, and I'd walk in there 3 or 4 times, and the first 3 times I'm not going to eat. And I'm trying to fight these thoughts all the time, and then the 4th time I go in there and I just I'm gonna have one. I'm gonna have one, and that one turns into half the box or something like that. So it's I have that, but now I don't have that, and so now. I know, because I just had, I had 2,000 calories for breakfast or something like that, or 1,800 calories for breakfast. I'm full, and I'm not hungry for anything. So this is not like, oh, I got to go eat donuts now, or I got to eat something else. And I'm going to have, the same thing for dinner. I'm going to have another steak and eggs, another 1,800 calories for dinner, or whatever that's going to be. And so I'm like, I don't need that stuff. So this is, again, you have that nutritional fullness, that some call it brain satiety, or this satiety, satiation, whatever you want to call it, that is just taking care of the physiology. I mean, there's a physiologic aspect and there's a psychological aspect of it. And until you address the physiology, the hunger, the psychology is always going to win. And so, I mean, I think you have to first deal with the physiology, which is eating the right foods and eating sufficient quantities of the right foods. And then you can deal with this part, the mental aspect of it. But so many people try, like I tell people, no diet you're ever going to be on is going to be successful if A, you're hungry all the time, and B, you don't like the food. And so, you can say, well, this is what you need to eat. It's great. Eat quinoa and kale salad all day long and eat as much as you want. It's like, one, it sucks. I don't like it. And two, I'm going to be hungry thinking about food all day. I'm not going to stick to this. And when it comes to like steak and eggs, I mean, I like it personally. and it fills me up. And that's all I need, right? That's all I need to maintain a good, healthy relationship with food.
So you have like 2 meals a day.
I'd say most of the time. Yeah, that's of the 6 years I've been doing it, I'd say 90% of the time I've been eating 2 meals a day. There are times when I'll eat once a day, a few occasionally. I mean, there are times when I eat 3 or 4 meals in a day. It just depends. But most of the time, I'd say
Yeah.
2 meals works out really well for me.
Yeah. I really have to ask you about the carbohydrate, the fruit
Mm.
and honey
Yeah.
debacle.
Yeah.
Is there any situation in which carbohydrates might be helpful?
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course. Yeah. I mean, so I think that, again, I am not a person that thinks all carbohydrates are bad. I'm not a person that thinks all plants are bad. I think that you have to put it in context. You have to realize who you're dealing with. I think that there are a lot of cases where fruit and honey and stuff like that is just a bad idea for a lot of people. And, I think people that are, one, still recovering food addicts. I think there are people that have truly problems with insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance, where that probably is not the best strategy. I think there are situations where, if you are lean and metabolically healthy and you're exercising in a significant way and it doesn't cause any GI disturbances, then those foods probably are fine for you. Do you need to eat them to be healthy? Because I hear the criticism, well, if you don't eat some carbs, you're going to die. You're going to have this gluconeogenesis out of control and your cortisol levels are going to be super high. The literature just doesn't support that. There's some short-term literature that suggests when you transition to a lower carb diet, yes, your cortisol levels ramp up, your gluconeogenesis ramps up a little bit. But over the long term, we see that those numbers sort of level out and stabilize. You don't need it for thyroid health. I mean, all these things are just based on, kind of incomplete data, like the thought about, well, my T3 went down, and it's not to say there aren't some people that's the case, but the overall sort of prescription that everybody has to have carbohydrates or their hair is going to fall out, they're going to tank their testosterone, their thyroid's going to shut down, or some other, or you're going to be excessively high cortisol, is just simply not true. Does that happen to some people? It can, for sure. I think so. And maybe carbohydrates will maybe help in that sense. But I think, like I said, for some athletes, they'll see that adding carbohydrate to their diet does provide a little bit of a benefit in the very short term. Does that chronically over time lead to problems? For some, yes, absolutely. For me, it did. And that usually shows up in the form of inflammation and, it's just, and that causes a whole bunch of limitations when it comes to training with recovery, willingness to train, pain. It's tough to train when you're in pain. But as far as, there's people out there saying that, it's kind of, there's this guy named Ray Peat that everybody likes to talk about. And he's a kind of a nutritional guru guy that promotes, saturated animal fat, which I certainly wouldn't disagree with him on that. But then he thinks that sugar is essential for life. And, it's even, table sugar and Mexican Cokes and drinking all that stuff and, just eating lots and lots of that stuff. People that have adopted that, and I see some of the people that were kind of formerly more strict carnivore have now adopted this philosophy, and now they're kind of rebranding themselves as sort of carnivore fruitarians, I guess. And if it works for them, I'm not going to say you shouldn't do it or shouldn't try it. Try it if you think it's what you want to do. It's certainly more sellable, and I think a lot of these people are interested in how sellable something is, rather than whether or not it truly helps. And my thought is, again, as a physician, and this is the angle I come into it, I'm not interested in selling supplements or how much money I can make off of this. I'm looking at it as what is most likely to provide the most benefit for sick people. And again, that's the difference. There's sick people that want to get healthy, and there's other people that, they want to, that just have discretionary money they can blow and spend it on being optimized or living for 200 years or whatever kind of nonsense these gurus.
Tread carefully. I want to live a long time.
Yeah, I do too. But it's, the people that tell you I'm going to make you live longer, the Aubrey de Greys, the David Sinclairs, the Peter Attias, they've got no testimonials yet. They've got none. Right. And it's a very easy business to be in. Oh, you take my magic snake oil and I guarantee you're going to live to, like Dave Asprey's out there telling people he's going to live to be 180 because he takes 300 supplements a day. Okay, whatever. I could just say, well, I'm eating a carnivore diet. I'm going to live to 527. I mean, it's just bullshit. It's just made up crap. So, I mean, I understand it. And with this fountain of youth stuff, humans have been seeking that forever. We all want to live forever and all be beautiful and healthy and that type of stuff. And there's no magic pills. I don't think there is. And I know there's people that will point to, oh, we got this rat or mouse study. Again, you can do it just about anything with mice. I mean, I heard somebody say, if you can't cure cancer in a mouse, you're an idiot. I mean, because it's not hard to do, and these are very different than humans are. And so I think what I look at is, I'm more interested in today, here and now. And if I can, if you do what I say and it doesn't work for you, then don't do what I say. Right? It's just not working for you. But if I tell you, just keep doing it and you're going to live to 100, there's no way for you to tell that. There's no way for you to verify if I'm a snake oil salesman or not. But if I say, hey, look, I think if you do this for 3 months, your psoriasis is going to go away. Okay, you get pretty good feedback. And I've got a lot of people that will say that that's worked. Now, does it work for 100% of the people? Probably not. In fact, it doesn't. But at least it's a reasonable thing. You can at least get some objective feedback. But where somebody's telling you you're going to live 12 years longer because you take my magic snake oil supplement, I don't know. How am I supposed to know? How long do I know how I'm supposed to live? Am I supposed to live 90 or 70? I have no idea what my life expectancy is going to be at this point. And I'll never know if I live longer than I should have or shorter than I should have. It's impossible to know that. Now, if I live to 130, then yeah, maybe you can make that argument, but I'm not going to know that for 80 years. So by that time, all the snake oil salesmen are dead. And their kids are spending all your money. So who knows? That's one thing that kind of just, I don't know. I guess I'm too much of a realist for that stuff. But like I said, just if I can just make you go from sick to not sick, then I'm done. I'm happy. Good. If you want to live for 1,000,000 years and buy Dave Asprey's super medicines, you go for it. But I'm not going to tell you to do that.
Yeah. Okay. That's a whole other hour discussion because I love this stuff, and so you're a realist. I'm more of an optimist with that. And I collect the data and everything, I'm one of those people who I want to do the testing, like the telomere length, all that kinds of tests, to see, okay, what's my biological age now? How can I shorten it? And what are all the tools that are available? Young blood transfusions, all the crazy stuff, I'm up for it. But not just yet, I'm into right now researching and putting content out, so it's not like I have an actual regimen, but what I can tell you is the exercise that I do, there's no doubt in my mind that is one of the best anti-aging things that I do.
Well, what do you think? How long do you think you're going to live?
Well, I don't want to think about it. I want to live forever.
Well, you think you're going to live to 120? What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, that's easy. No, I want more than that. That's the easy stuff.
Okay, so you're gonna cryogenically freeze your head or something like that, or what are you gonna do?
No. I want to live looking like this forever.
Well, yeah, that's nice, but there's that. And yeah, do you know of any human that's ever done that? Do you know of any human that's ever done that?
I want to be the first.
You want to be the first. Well, I get it, but it's there's a point where how much energy and effort are you going to spend on that? How much of your day will that consume? There are people out there that literally they wake up and then they do their daily affirmations and meditation, and then they ground for 15 minutes, and then they spend 5 minutes in the cold plunge, and then they go in the infrared therapy, and then they blend up their super smooth blender, and then they do their 27.3 minutes of this
Let
exercise.
me tell you. The goal is to make shit tons of money so that money is not an issue, so that I can afford the crazy therapies. They already have, the telomerase injections, NAD plus injections, all that crazy stuff. But you need a lot of money for that. And so before that, it's make a ton of money, and then you can actually do stuff that moves the needle,
True. And does that stuff actually move the needle though? We don't know. Who knows? I guarantee, all those people getting these crazy injections and infusions, have any of them lived to 120?
Well, we can't tell. Yeah,
right.
I know. But we have markers that can tell us. It's fine. I will work on convincing you at some point. But for now, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Where do I see myself in the next 5 to 10 years? Well, I mean, I'll still be doing exercise and trying to break world records and various stuff. But, I'll probably still be eating a meat-based diet. I don't see myself transitioning over to a vegan diet anytime soon. Hopefully, we'll have this company, up and running, and I mean, expanded. I mean, hopefully, we will be obviously. Nationally and then globally at that point. Like I said, hopefully I'm still happy, have good, healthy, happy kids, and enjoying life. I mean, that's really what I care about, as far as what I want to do. What if and hopefully, God willing or whatever, I'm able to do that, and avoiding any kind of crazy, being hit by a bus or some other crazy thing. But yeah, that's kind of where I think I'll be, hopefully.
Awesome. And we're all, supporting you. And I'm always telling people about Rivero. So I guess my last question to you is, where can people find you and how can people support you and your work?
Yeah, so I mean, I am, like I said, I have a meeting every day at Rivero, so you can join Rivero for free, at least for a month. You can do that. I'm there, answering questions and stuff every day at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I have, social media. I've got a YouTube channel, Shawn Baker MD, which I put up some videos once or twice a day typically. And I've got an Instagram, Shawn Baker, SHAWNBAKER 1967 on Instagram. When I'm not shadow banned, I'm usually putting up some content. I'm on Twitter at SBakerMD, and then I'm also on TikTok, crazily enough, on Shawn Baker MD. I just got unbanned from TikTok, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, that's where I am. I've got a book, The Carnivore Diet, if you guys are interested in reading about it. But some of you guys probably have already. But that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Baker. It's been an honor to have this conversation with you. And thank you, everybody, for sticking with us till the end. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.